Friday Night Magic. We're supposed to do a box opening, but we got into. Is it filming?
Yeah, we're recording and
We
filming.
were supposed to
This is
do
what the
a
people can
box
see.
opening, but we got into a drunken argument last night.
As you
so
can
that
see,
didn't
the
go.
date is 12/5/2020.
Yep, that
and it's
is the date.
8:06.
Do I sound good, Robbie? Is it coming through?
Sounds good.
All right. So first, we're going to
Dan?
do a quick preview
Yes.
of the decks that I have
I was
as of
just
right
gonna
now.
ask about this deck. Is this an Esper deck? I saw white, I saw blue, I saw black.
This is actually my collection up here. Dan's new to MTG Online. So, of the decks that we can play, there is Mono White Angels, which is a very interesting deck that most viewers would have never even heard of. But the way the synergies in the deck is actually very interesting, and it can pull off a win. And when I'm playing against somebody, they don't see it coming. It's one of those decks where, they have no idea. So let's quickly look at that. So I run Silence. It's personally one of my favorite instants for white. Silence, basically at instant speed for 1 mana, you can stop your opponent's turn. So you stop on their upkeep and you cast Silence, and they can't cast spells throughout their entire turn. So you can shut an opponent down for, one whole turn, and that'll give you a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
Of course, Path to Exile. That's a staple in mono white. Almost every single mono white or just any variant of white deck would use this card because of the power. You can take out anything with that. And then we have this very interesting 1 mana Flying Vigilance. And the main thing about it is that makes it so good is that it's an angel. So it'll trigger all other abilities that are related to an angel. And then, like sometimes you'll get a 1-drop and it has certain key abilities. This has flying and vigilance. So it'll collect on any of the lowered power-ups from other angels. And the beginning of the game, it's really good to have because you can attack and block. And then on top of that, late game, it can collect some power-ups.
Nice.
Next, Sarah Avenger. So this one is extremely powerful, but there's a drawback. You can't cast it until your 4th turn. So your fourth turn rolls around, you got a 2-drop Flying Vigilance, 3/3. So that can be very, very, it all adds up. You'll see, like, a lot of the cards in this deck actually, it is a mid-range. I threw this in for fun, just because that card's fun. And then a lot of the stuff is, most of the quick aggro decks have like a mana curve of 1, 2, 3, and then you won't see any 4-drops, 5-drops, or anything like that. I included a few cards in this deck that are borderline necessary. This card can get very out of control. Oh, wrong one. This card can get very out of control. When you're gaining life left and right and just powering up your team, the only way that they can stop you is a board wipe or single target removal. So that can be very debilitating when it comes down to it. This is a key card in the deck, as it's not an angel, but it synergizes with the angels. So whenever you cast an angel, you gain 4 life. Whenever one dies, you put a 1/1 flyer out. So that card is more of like a utility, you play around it as far as, and it is part of one of the combos. So on turn 2, you drop this, and then you have one of these special lands down here.
Wanted to make sure that you specified, because you said cast an angel, but it said enter the battlefield. So technically, even when you have tokens enter the battlefield, that
Right, if it's countered, it's not going to work. So any tokens, any time it enters the battlefield, it's you are right. Yeah, it's not when you cast it, but to sum it up. Now this land, some people might see it as a drawback, but when you're trying to gain certain amounts of life in this deck, this card actually really comes in handy, and it's part of like a turn 3, turn 4 combo that'll definitely stop the opponent in the tracks. So when it enters, you get a life, and then whenever an angel comes into the battlefield, you gain a life. It only taps for colorless. This deck is very white mana demanding, so this card can be a drawback, but at the same time, it's also a key piece in one of the combos that I can pull off. So the Avengers and the Bishops. This is Angel of Vitality. Now this one, referring to the combo that I was mentioning before, if my life becomes 25, it pumps up. So you'll have a 4/4 flying. And then on top of that, it also has the added ability, which very much comes in handy. Whenever I gain life, I gain one more life on top of the life that I gain. So that can be very, very useful. Resplendent Angel, one of by far the best angels in this deck because of the fact that it generates tokens. So at the beginning of each end step, as long as I gain 5 or more life, I can create a 4/4 flying and vigilance, which is extremely powerful for 3 mana. And then it also has a ramp ability if I get to turn 6 and I have the 6 mana that I can give it lifelink and produce it internally within the card, produce one of the angels, because it'll be +2, goes up to 5, gives it lifelink, creates an angel by the end of the turn. So that's huge. This is more of a utility. It gives me hex proof on my creatures so they can't be removed. I don't run green in the deck, so you won't really see that ability used at all. Now, before I mentioned the Archangel of Thune, I'm running 2 because I don't want to rely so much on the higher cost cards. I kind of want them to just kind of flow in. This is more of like a, it's good on its own, flying vigilance and lifelink for 5 mana, and then I basically use it for the fabricate ability. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to leave it as a 2/1 and then let it ramp in 2 creatures with the fabricate and just try to overpower my opponent. Because with the Lord effect on it, it's going to give these 2 tokens +1 and turn them into 2/2s, and then on its own, it's going to be a 2/1 flyer with vigilance and lifelink. Dawnbringer, one of the most powerful angels that I've seen in a very long time. It's an angel lord that also gives them lifelink. That's important. It itself has lifelink, first strike, and flying.
Yeah, having a anything with over 5 power, or it's a 5/5, right? So
Yeah, that's a big.
But even a 5/5 with flying and first strike is pretty good.
That's a very, very, very powerful card. And that's, late game, if I make it to turn 5, I'm going to rely on a card like that. Now, over here, this is the strange part of the deck. Why would I have an 8-drop in a modern match? Well, in a life gain deck, sometimes the games can be kind of drawn out. So, for instance, let's say I have no life gain in my deck, and I'm just like a regular modern deck, and I'm not gaining life. Very rarely will I ever make it to turn 8. With this deck, it's common for you to live long enough to be able to play this, so I make sure that I have one Angel of Hope and then one Platinum Angel. In case the game is dragged out that long by my life total, I want those to be in there to make it harder for my opponent to stop me. So these must be dealt with before I am, basically, is what it comes down to. So that's basically a section of higher cost cards that I likely will never play. And if I draw them in my opening hand, it's kind of like, oof, and I hit myself in the head because why did I put those in there? But they do end up helping. And this one is an incredible commander. It's one of the only cards I've ever seen that actually has this text and gives all of your permanents indestructible. So it itself is indestructible, and then it gives the indestructible ability to everything else.
Can you make the magic full screen?
It is.
Function for that?
Like,
Look at the taskbar.
the taskbar is not that big of a deal. I can drop the taskbar down. Hold on. There should be a hide taskbar setting. Automatically hide in desktop mode, I guess, if that's better for you. This doesn't really go. Yeah, we won't be able to. Might be because it's full screen though, so let's try to do this. Robbie wants everything to be perfect. That's what we're working on right now.
I'm the producer.
There, true full screen for YouTube. I hope it looks nice.
That's
All right,
what
so
I
with that
wanted.
quick introduction, I mean, I could go back over some of my other decks, but I think we're going to just start off and play a quick match. As you can see, there's no sideboard.
I wanted to ask a question.
Go for it.
Okay, so with it's Platinum Angel, it's hard to read from this distance. I'm sorry.
Now, this is a...
Okay. I had a question. So it says you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. So if you were in a situation where you actually had this out on the battlefield, could you, per se, like, deal damage during combat that would bring them down to 0, and
You
then
can go
in
into
response you could like exile
You
this
yourself,
creature and then
I'll explain how it works.
Okay.
You yourself can go into negative life while you have this in play. If your opponent can't destroy it and it's out, there's no way that you can lose the game. If your opponent has a card that says target player loses the game in some way, shape, or form, it won't work. It basically has null targets and will not trigger.
And
if the opponent wins, they can't win until the angel is removed from play.
I understand. So I guess what I was saying was if there was a situation where it was out and it went out originally when you were in kind of a bad place, but then you got into a place where you could win the game, but you'd still have to get rid of it. You would just kind of have to like hope that you had like something to exile it.
It will not affect me winning the game. Does that make sense? So if I have it out and I need to win the game,
Oh
I'm
wait,
still
because
going
it
to win
says
the
you
game.
can't lose the game and your opponents can't win. Oh,
It's a
okay.
stop.
Sorry.
It's
I didn't.
like
I didn't read
a
it
metal
correctly.
stop sign being planted down in front of a car. You can't.
I was reading it as that like you couldn't win the game either for whatever
No,
reason.
there is an inversion of it that says you can't win the game and your opponents can't lose, but that card is the opposite. It has a low casting cost and a very, very strong body. So, in a sense, if you get that card out, you're going to have a really easy time bashing your opponent down to 0 life, but if it's still out once you get them to 0, you can't win. So you have to get rid of your own creature. But this is the opposite of that. Very hard to cast, very hard to keep in play, but there's no way that you can lose until it's dealt with by the opponent. So that in itself is a very, very good shield, and it pairs very, very well with the Angel of Hope because this will automatically just make it indestructible and that much harder to remove from the field. So this is like the complicated, not so important end of the deck that I could easily remove for maybe, another one of these or 2 more of these. But what it comes down to is my favorite part of this deck is these silences. So I'll be playing, and first of all, they don't expect me to be playing Angel Tribal. And then second of all, they don't expect on turn 4 when they're about to play one of their heavy-hitting cards that I stop their entire turn. And then it's this card, if you read it in a way, it basically says, I take an extra turn, and it's 1 mana. And it's legal in Modern. So that's an extremely powerful card.
It's basically you counter the other person's turn is what you're doing.
But they can still attack if they have creatures
and
out.
their abilities still trigger if there's like beginning of.
But if it's the beginning of the
step
game
abilities.
and they have like what, a 2/2 out, what difference is that going to make? I'm stopping their entire turn. Yeah, they draw a card. Yeah, they get their land drop, but I set them back.
That's
very
all
far.
you get. Yeah, you don't.
Yep,
You just
that's
getting.
a good
I was
point.
gonna say that it's like really all you get is the land drop.
And then again, going back to the sideboard, you can see I don't have a sideboard. That's because I don't really play this deck competitively. So I would never enter a tournament with this deck. But I could easily make a sideboard for it and play it competitively. I just haven't done that yet. So I never really thought that it would be all that important to make a sideboard.
Why don't you fire up a game?
Yeah, I'll fire a game up. The sideboard, I'm just going to give you a ghost through on the sideboard. There would be Graveyard Hate, spot removal, and maybe a board wipe. Things like that that would kind of clean up some of the other combos is what you would use.
No, that's a green spell, isn't it? Naturalize.
So we're going to Constructed. This is going to be our first match in Modern. And we're going to open play and not tournament practice. In open play, it's 1 game. It's not a best 2 or 3, so I wouldn't. It doesn't require the sideboard. All right, looks like this guy's ready to go. And our first game with the mono white angel tribal. Should be interesting. So we're going to remove the chat. Hide game log. There we go. We don't need that. So looking at this hand, I can see that I have 2 sanctuaries, which can be nice, but I might not want 2 of these. On top of that, I got 2 5-drops. So this is a very late hand. I would want to mulligan this. I would want to start ramping up in the first couple turns. Oh, that's not much better, but we'll have to stick with it because it's not looking like I'm going to
You
get...
got some lands in there.
Definitely have some lands and a backup Shalia. I'll keep that hand over any other. And the Shrine is really good as well. I think we're going to pitch 1 Shalia. If they end up getting rid of the one that we got, it did its job is what I would say. It deflected some of the damage. So it's his turn. I'm going to set a yield. Okay. So I see the Molten Pinnacle. It looks like he's either playing Amulet or he's playing one of the newer decks that they made that are basically just... It's like land tribal, basically, what it comes down to. So they play a bunch of different types of lands and then use Field of the Dead to generate zombies and stop the opponent. I'm
I
just
see you
gonna,
just drew into a silence.
yeah, I did get the silence, but that's not going to be the best play on turn 2. Watch what he does on turn 2 and ask yourself, would I want to stop him from doing this? So he's got the battlement. Watch. Now, I would have had to do that on upkeep. He doesn't play anything, so that would have wasted the silence. I normally wait till about turn 3 or 4. So I'm going to set a stop, and we're just going to quickly judge. See, he didn't play anything during my turn. That's what you want to... Ooh, it didn't stop. That's not good. I was going to kind of walk us through it. Now, this is a strange combo that I never see in Modern. This is the Garrison and the Battlement. These 2 meld together and create 1 card, and we're going to be able to see what that does. And from what I remember, it's very powerful. See, I would have wanted to cast Silence and stop him from doing that if I could go back, but I didn't set the stop fast enough. Okay. So my guess is my best play would be the Resplendent Angel and then save the Silence for a turn when I have 1 extra mana. And normally 9 times out of 10 when they see this card drop, they know they have to get rid of it. So let's see how he deals with it. He is running mono red, is from what I can tell so far. Looks like he might try to create the Writhing Township. He's going to need a lot more mana for that. I'm going to yield through this. He might try to attack because he gets his creature tokens, but if he does end up attack, he skipped the attack, so he decided against that. That's good for us.
Well, you could just block it, right?
I could have blocked it, but in red, he runs burn, and I want to make sure this stays alive. This is a very important card in the deck. Ooh, silence number 2. This is going to get kind of shaky for him. So I'm just going to start off by running out one of these. And now he held back a bunch of mana. I'm guessing he's going to burn this out when I attack. But we're going to attack anyway. So we're swinging in with the angel. See what he does. I'm guessing he'll kill it. Nothing. All right. I got to oh, it skipped it again. Stop. I set the stop, but not for his turn. There we go. Well, it doesn't look like he's going to play anything. It looks like he might attack now. So now that I have the stop set on his turn, I'm not going to be making that same mistake for the third time in a row. And I'm basically going to have to just let this roll through.
That was the thing that I found most difficult about this game, is trying to figure out like
Well, they
how
actually
the controls worked to auto yield and stuff.
they actually just updated the auto yields like a couple days ago. So that's the only reason I'm having an issue with it right now. So he got his 4 damage in, created his tokens, and he's probably very chipper about that. And now it's my end step, and I feel ashamed for not being able to silence him. But on the bright side, he didn't cast anything anyway. Perfect. Okay, so I got a path. I can deal with his garrison before he melds it to the land. And I'm going to actually just take advantage of that opportunity right now. And then on his turn, I set this stop, so I'll be able to stop him from doing anything on his turn. And I should be able to get a little bit of an advantage here. Swinging with both. Chooses not to block.
Oh, he doesn't have a choice, right?
You got a good point there, Dan. All right, now it's his upkeep. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. I've been talking this card up for like an hour. It's time for silence. One of my favorite cards. So that resolves. His turn is over with. He has 2/1/1s that he most likely will swing with. Let him through.
What just happened? I missed that.
Yeah, something happened.
He went down to 10 life, Jerry.
Jerry.
Maybe
is
we'll
AFK at the moment,
we'll overdub this portion. We'll do some cuts and stuff.
and
Something happened, dude.
oh.
He just went down to 10 life. I'm not really sure.
Okay, he was using lands that damage him. They're called pain lands,
Oh, like Shocklands.
shock lands, pain lands. This land he used and paid 1 to search his library for this land, which comes into play
And did 2.
untapped and did 2. Now that tells me if he left this untapped, that he has something to do on my turn. Otherwise, he would have just let it come into play tapped and
Yeah.
not damage him.
And that's a lot of mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
So
Silence.
I could silence him, but in response, he could cast whatever he's going to do.
Silence.
Robby.
No, the other one's
Oh.
used.
What are you gonna do?
I'm thinking Shalia because that will protect my board, and he'll have to target that instead. Or force him to draw out whatever he has in hand. And it enters. So that means that planeswalkers I control, and there are none in this deck, and other creatures have hexproof. So that gives these each hexproof.
He might have a board wipe.
He might, but, you know, when it comes down to it, it doesn't really look like... I don't know what this guy's game plan is. If it was that battlement thing,
I honestly think he's trying to end it.
like he wants to
Murder
lose, why would he
me.
quit?
I think he just like got rid of more life, trying to like make it quicker and just get the match over with. But like, he wouldn't he
You
just
never know.
concede? Why
You
wouldn't
never
you just
know.
concede?
This is an unranked match, right?
Unranked.
Okay, there we go.
Now it's Ugin or however you would pronounce it. This one makes his spells cheaper. It's not the scary dangerous one, but he can, yeah, like I was about to say, he can destroy something. So that is more of a scary one, and I will easily be able to take it out with my angel. Yeah, your little human 1/1s aren't really doing much, buddy, so keep swinging.
I feel like he got really excited about that Ugin, and really, it's not gonna help him any. You could probably.
Well, here's the other.
I was gonna say, are you able? In a certain situation, you might actually.
I
be
can
able to
actually end it
this
right
turn.
now. I
Can you?
believe.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm 1 mana short. This is 6, not 5, so I can't.
Damn.
In that case, I can do this. And I set that stop on his upkeep for another silence. He won't be able to do much next turn. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that this isn't a threat. We're going to target that with the 1/1. And then this one will go right for him. And then next turn I have him floored. It's done. And his turn starts whenever he's ready. And ironically enough, at the same time it starts, it ends because of silence. So he can attack with those 1/1s, but there's no point. And game over, buddy.
That was awesome, dude.